One of the most persistent misunderstandings in public life is the belief that identifying a problem and generating a solution are almost exactly the same activity. They're not. In fact, they belong to different orders of reasoning altogether. It's almost as if they're done by different hemispheres. Diagnosis is not prescription. To identify a problem is to illuminate a deficiency or a contradiction. To solve it is to construct a workable, tested, and often costly response. The gap between the two is where politics, scholarship, and human life tend to become difficult. In politics, this distinction is routinely forgotten. A minister points to an institutional failure and is immediately asked, "So, what is the solution?" My response to Trevor Austin's remark, for example, in the comments, captures this. The fact that a problem has been spotted doesn't oblige anyone to present a fully operational remedy within the same breath, nor does the absence of an immediate remedy imply incompetence. It's simply the nature of complex systems that problems reveal themselves long before solutions can be reasonably crafted. Modern British politics offers repeated examples of this. Take social care. All parties have acknowledged its crisis for more than a decade. The problem has been mapped in forensic detail. Rising demand, workforce collapse, an ageing population, and inadequate funding models. Yet each time a government proposes a solution, it collapses under political or economic scrutiny because a structurally sustainable settlement requires cross-party consensus, intergenerational fairness, substantial taxation. Identification was instant. Resolution has taken years and remains unfinished. Another case is the Post Office Horizon scandal. Sub-postmasters knew there was a problem almost immediately. Journalists identified it within a few years. Parliament has finally acknowledged it, but the machinery of the state took more than 15 years to assemble a remedy that addressed justice, compensation, and institutional reform. The problem was plain. The solution required investigation, inquiry, legislation, and cultural change inside the post office and Fujitsu and the government. The slowness is regrettable, but it illustrates the gulf between observation of a problem and repair to that problem. Even immigration policy follows the same logic. Governments of every colour have noted labour shortages, demographic decline, and border management challenges, but solutions that align economics, public opinion, and administrative capacity have taken decades to approach coherence. A problem can be obvious and yet defy easy correction. This is not a mark of inadequacy, it's a mark of honesty, and it's at the heart of academic life as well. In academic research, the phenomenon is even more familiar, therefore, I would say. Scholars have often spent years noticing an anomaly before they can articulate a theory that explains it. The entire history of philosophy reflects that dynamic. Ancient Greece provides the clearest example. Plato identified profound problems in human reasoning and political organization in the instability of moral knowledge. Yet his attempts at solutions were provisional, developmental, and sometimes plainly contradictory. Take the problem of justice, for example, that dominates the Republic. Plato recognise that societies fall into disorder because individuals pursue private goods at the expense of the common good. This was his problem statement, but the solution, the tripartite soul, the philosopher king, the structure of the Kallipolis, took the entire length of the Republic, and even then it functioned more as a heuristic than a program for government. He was diagnosing the tendencies of the human mind. His solution was an educational and philosophical model that he revised repeatedly in the laws, acknowledging that perfect justice remained elusive, as indeed in the effort to institute it in Syracuse resulted in complete chaos. Similarly, the problem of knowledge. Plato's early dialogues reveal his struggle to make sense of sophistic relativism. The problem was clear. If everything is merely opinion, nothing stable can be taught or governed. But the solution, the theory of forms, the divided line, the allegory of the cave, as in the Republic, emerged only after years of philosophical labour, and even then remained contested. Identification preceded solution by a long intellectual journey, and this pattern recurs throughout the development of thought. Aristotle saw weaknesses in Plato's theory of forms, but himself took years to develop a working alternative grounded in substance, causation, and empirical observation. In ethics, the problem of the good life was common to all Greek thinkers. The solutions differed radically. Plato's rational harmony, Aristotle's virtue and flourishing, the Stoics' inner discipline, the Epicureans' measured pleasure. The problem was shared. The solutions took centuries to articulate and refine. What unites politics and scholarship is the simple truth. In complex domains, solutions are not instant provisions. They are crafted, tested, resisted, improved, sometimes abandoned and sometimes rediscovered generations later. To expect a complete remedy at the moment a problem is unveiled is to misunderstand how human systems learn. Reform UK supporters, like Trevor Austin, I presume he's a Reform UK supporter, often argue that identifying the problem is not enough and that the real test is providing a solution. That's fair, but it assumes that solutions can be generated by will rather than knowledge, capacity and institutional experience. Reform will need time because everyone needs time. Reform isn't absolutely to be condemned. It's not necessarily to be embraced. But every time, every party has to learn this lesson. Conservative austerity was a rapid solution to a specific specific problem, and it's to a superficial simple problem, but it created years of secondary problems. Labour's current difficulties stem from proposing swift fixes to tax, immigration, NHS performance and public sector reform, only to find that entrenched systems resist immediate transformation. The lesson is surely simple in reflection. To observe a problem is a necessary act of intellectual courage. To solve it is a separate project requiring patience, method and humility. It's taking your intellectual observation and turning it into a practical conclusion. That's a different type of intellectual process. One doesn't discredit the other. In fact, the first is the precondition of the second. Understanding that distinction is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of maturity. In politics, in academia, and in any serious attempt to change the world, we need both parts of that debate. We need the identification of the problem and the presentation of a variety of solutions. If you don't accept this solution, it doesn't mean you don't recognise the problem. And that's another thing that we find regularly coming up in politics. That if you don't like my solution, then you don't recognise that, then you're rejecting the problem. Not so. Not so. A problem may have multiple solutions. And some of those solutions will have to be rejected only after they have been tried.